All right, now we are talking about the Mississippians. So their government, they are led by a chief, and this is an all-powerful chief. But the chief also has a paramount chief, which serves as his personal assistant, and it's usually someone that's related to him. So the paramount chief even collects a percentage of the kills after a hunt or crops from the people. So this is like tribute to the chief, basically, like I said, taxes. So if a chief does die, the people are supposed to kill his wife and children so that they could all be together in the afterlife. I can't even imagine that. That's pretty crazy to even think about. Um, Besides the chief, everybody else, the rest of the population, they are organized into either elites or commoners. The religion, there's not much known about their religion because they didn't have a written language. So there's not much that can be found about that. But the what the researchers infer is that they put special importance on animals and plants and all natural things because they believe that all natural things were related in some way. They did pray to the spirits of the animals that they killed for sacrifice, and they asked for forgiveness for having to take their life. So this is like the first tribe that we have studied that actually is showing remorse for having to pay tribute, but it's just something that they felt that they had to do. They believed they instead of gods, they believed a lot more in animals and that they were the messengers between the land, water, and sky. The Mississippians, if you ask anybody, the one thing they probably know about them is that they are mound builders because they were great mound builders. They were typically oval shaped and flat topped. If you look at that picture there, it almost looks like a serpent. And there are the Great Serpent Mounds, which I have been to. It's pretty cool. But they are used for burials or other religious ceremonies. So some of the religious ceremonies that they would have built mounds for were to honor animals and then spirits of other rulers that have passed. We talk about, well, okay. The Mississippians were also in the culture of sun worshipers, and they used fire. They thought it was a symbol of the sun on earth. So they didn't necessarily worship the fire, but it was of high importance to them. And they thought that there was something called the perpetual fire, and it was in basically every village of the Mississippians. But they also believe that if this perpetual fire that they have, if it was extinguished, that everything and everyone in the world would die and that that's how the world would end. So what's weird about that though is that once a year on their Thanksgiving ceremony, they would extinguish the fire. And that is sort of like the beginning of a new year to them. So the fire was very important to them, and it was also like a religious feature. It was in many of their religious practices and beliefs. We talked a little bit about social structure, but this is like the other tribes. People were just born into a family, and then their ranking was based off of that. So some families were in the elite class, and they had a higher status. The elites were believed to be descended from the gods. So they had big houses, special clothing, and they didn't have to have a job. That's different from the Incans and Mayans because they believed that everybody had to do their part, everyone had to have a job, but the Mississippians didn't necessarily believe that. The commoners then, they were the people that had to work all the time, grow the food, make the crafts, serve as warriors. They were like the working class. And the elites, they got to just kind of hang out. Some technology that they had, they built homes and they were very orderly. They had them in orderly rows around a central plaza. And like we talked about before, they had they were mound builders, so they had mounds everywhere. There were two, though, in their settlement that were made for specific things. For instance, one was for housing the chief, and the other one was for holding ceremonies. They also made arrowheads and other weapons to hunt food. Agricultural practices. So, like I said before, they are hunters, but they hunted animals like white-tailed deer, muskrat, beavers, rabbit, raccoon, turkeys, and they thought that fish was very important for the protein. So that's pretty interesting that they already had that belief. They were great farmers, and they grew what is known as the Three Sisters. So that's corns, yeah, different types of corns, beans, and squash. Just like mm, the Mayans, they also came up with different food storing methods so that they could have fresh food year round. And they were very good at trading. They traded different foods or stone for copper, clothing, and other foods that they maybe didn't grow. Other products that they have, they invented the canoe, and they used them to navigate the Mississippi River, and also it was used to help them fish. They made them by cutting down a tree and hollowing out the tree trunk. Games were also very important to him. So they made up this game called Chunky, which is they take a thick, shiny stone and turn it into like a disc, and they threw it. As it was rolling, another player had to toss his spear to where he thought the stone would stop rolling, and the closest person would win the game. I don't know if that sounds very fun, but I guess they didn't have many other things to do. So that was a game that they made up. They had a lot of different types of nuts. They were also gatherers as well as hunters. So they had pecans and walnuts, hickory, acorns. They also had berries such as wild berries and blueberries. And they also were the ones that made tobacco for different ceremonial purposes. For today's activity, what you're going to do is first on a piece of paper, you're going to draw a mound. Then you're going to draw 5 different symbols in it to represent the Mississippians. So here's the breakdown of the symbols that you have to include. One has to be about their religion. The second one has to be about their government. The third is social structure. The fourth is products or inventions. And the fifth is anything of your choice. Then for each symbol, you must write a detailed sentence that explains why you chose the symbol and how it relates to the Mississippians. I made an example for you. So, my lovely mound, and as you can see, it is a sun, and I put flames around it, or what I thought looked kind of like flames. And this is my religion symbol, and I chose a sun surrounded by flames because the Mississippians worship the sun and believe the perpetual fire was in all of their villages. So make sure that in your sentence, you fully explain it and show that it relates to the Mississippians and what you've learned.